You should be grateful I even touched a plain and gloomy old woman like you. Sorry, but I have a young lover. It was a sudden event. Until now, my husband, who had been as kind as a gentleman, was shouting at me with a terrifying expression. This is the entrance of our home. Just having returned home, I was unable to comprehend the situation. What do you mean? I wish I could wake up if this is a dream. While trembling, I raised my voice as much as I could to the cruel man in front of me. That's what I said. I was never really interested in an old lady like you. I've already accomplished my purpose with this marriage. Receive the divorce papers and get out quickly. As if to overwhelm me further, my husband raised his voice again. Looking down at me and scolding me, he looked like a demon out of a hellish painting. What purpose? And telling me to leave this house, but this house is. Then, my husband revealed a shocking truth. I sold this house. I'm divorcing you and plan to live elegantly with the money and my young lover. I was speechless at the unexpected words. All the happy days we had spent together, the kind words and smiles of my husband I believed in, were all lies, just a means to achieve his goals. I had been deceived by my husband. He was about to grasp a new happiness. And I was dropped into the darkness of loneliness, losing everything. That was the ending my husband wanted for the two of us. However, if he knew my true identity, he would soon change his attitude. I understand. I vowed in my heart to make sure this man could never walk proudly under the sun again. From this moment, as I clenched my fist, my triumphant march began. My name is Samantha, 42 years old. I live in a high-rise apartment a little away from the city. And the glittering night view from the high floor is breathtakingly beautiful. My workplace is a trading company with its headquarters in a towering skyscraper in the city center, where I handle a multitude of clerical tasks daily. From creating documents and supporting sales staff to preparing for meetings. Though my life might seem glamorous, I am single with no lover. In a plain suit like that of a job-hunting student, with black hair tied up and black-rimmed glasses. No man comes near someone with my appearance. Furthermore, in the office, I am called an old maid behind my back. And female employees who leave on time to pick up their children at daycare push their work onto me. I haven't been able to leave work on time for several years. My days are spent commuting between home and work. The night sky I look up to every day gently embraces me. When I return home, the first thing I do is pray to the smiling portraits of my parents. It has become my morning and evening routine. Dad, Mom, I'm home. Of course, they always greet me kindly without a word. My parents passed away 10 years ago. They died in a collision between their car and a large truck. Human life is fleeting. No matter how much I called their names when I rushed to the hospital, they never came back. Having few relatives and no siblings, I am all alone in the world. I don't seek great happiness. I prefer a simple life. I don't desire luxury, I just hope to continue this life without losing anything more important. One day in April, after finishing overtime, I was walking home and felt the city was livelier than usual. The sky was completely dark, and the cold air made me shiver. However, the heat of the city did not cool down, and the flushed people were merrily making noise. Today is Friday. Probably, parties are being held everywhere. Even at night, the street trees, bathed in numerous lights, are not allowed to sleep. And as I quickly headed home, something happened. A dull thud, and suddenly my vision was blocked. It smelled of alcohol. It seems I had bumped into a drunk person. As I apologized and tried to leave, a drunken man approached me. He rudely blew alcohol breath at me, probably complaining, but his words were slurred. Feeling frightened, I tried to escape, but the drunk's friends kept coming one after another. Surrounded by a circle of drunks, I couldn't move. That's when it happened. A man pushed through the group and rushed to me. He argued with the drunks for a few minutes. Thanks to his resolute attitude, the drunks did not resist any further. Then, he took my hand and started walking quickly. I couldn't see the face of the man, but as I followed the tall figure in a trench coat, my heartbeat gradually quickened. You're safe now. There are too many drunks tonight. They're usually weak, but when they drink, they act tough, especially towards women. It's despicable. He looked down at me with a refreshing smile. Embarrassed by being stared at so closely by such a handsome man, I couldn't raise my face. My heart was beating even faster, and I couldn't calm my flushed face. Are you okay? It must have been scary. But you can relax now. I'm at my limit. Being treated kindly by such a handsome man, I, who have no immunity to men, feel overwhelmed by shyness. I should leave quickly. Ah. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Excuse me. I turned my back on the man and started walking. Wait, please. It's dangerous for a woman to walk alone on the night streets. Let me walk you to the front of your house. The man chased after me. It's okay. Besides, I'm just an old lady. See, I might get hassled, but I won't get attacked. It was embarrassing enough that such a wonderful man was walking with someone like me. He grabbed my hand again. I instinctively turned around and looked up at him. For the first time, I saw his eyes. He was also staring at me. What are you talking about? It must have been scary going through that. I'm worried about you. I'll walk you home. Drawn into his clear eyes, I found myself nodding involuntarily. Thank you. Then, we engaged in light conversation as we walked home. His innocent smile warmed my heart. And I was thrilled by his kindness as he escorted me through steps and narrow paths. It was a first-time experience for me. Thank you so much. This is my home. The 15 minutes I spent with him flew by. And we arrived in front of the high-rise apartment where I live. Then, the man looked up at the apartment in surprise. It's no wonder. It's a high-rise apartment that you wouldn't imagine someone as plain as me living in. You live in such a beautiful apartment. Do you live here with your parents? Normally, I would hesitate to share personal details with a stranger. But I felt indebted to and could trust this man. My parents have passed away. I bought this apartment in my name because I'll probably be single for life. He smiled kindly at my laughter. Actually, can I offer you something in return for helping me today? It's unlike me to say such a thing. I was surprised at myself. But I truly wanted to thank him, and I also wanted to spend a little more time with this man. He nodded kindly, and we exchanged contact information before parting ways. His name is Patrick, 40 years old. True to his name, he is a kind and generous man. That night, I couldn't fall asleep. His calm smile kept returning to my mind, and before I knew it, I was thinking only of him. Even though I'm an old lady. At 42, romance had been a stranger to me, but I fell in love with him. Later, he accepted my invitation, and we dined at a French restaurant in a hotel. I can't let a woman pay. As I tried to pay, he stopped me and presented his own card. I intended to treat him, but ended up being treated instead. On another holiday, we went to an aquarium together. He likes fishing and marine sports and has a wealth of knowledge about fish. Introducing me to a world I didn't know. Samantha, you are really humble and wonderful. It feels like a miracle that we met while both single. Sometimes, his shy smile made my face turn red. Thus, our relationship quickly grew closer, and we naturally fell in love. A few months later, he proposed to me. The proposal was during a dinner on a cruise ship with a popular night view. It was a scenario I had secretly longed for, and he gently offered me a ring. Staring back into his serious eyes, I nodded. It was a dreamlike Cinderella story. However, there was one concern I had about marrying him: children. At 42, it was possible that I might not be able to have children. As if seeing through my anxiety, he held my hand and whispered, "I want to be with you, Samantha. Even if we can't have children, we'll be happy just the two of us." He always enveloped me with kindness. I was constantly being saved by him. Thus, we married, and our happy life together began in the apartment I owned. 6 months passed. Our married life was going smoothly. We both worked hard during the day and spent quiet evenings together. However, my concerns were confirmed, and despite several attempts, we were unable to conceive. These things are meant to be. There's no need to rush, and you shouldn't blame yourself. Perhaps the cause could even be with me. My husband always encouraged me with his kind smile, despite my constant worries about age. Yet, I couldn't give up my dream. I wanted a child, even if just one. I then visited a renowned obstetrics and gynecology clinic to receive information on infertility treatments. There was an option for advanced infertility treatment, though it was expensive. It would require my husband's cooperation. However, he frowned upon the idea of infertility treatment and showed reluctance. We don't need to go that far. There are many happy couples without children. I don't desire a pregnancy that requires us to push ourselves so hard. He left the room coldly after saying that, and it seemed I had upset him. In my eagerness for a child, I might have pushed things too far on my own. We should have discussed it more as a couple. And perhaps I was too demanding about checking for ovulation days and seizing the opportunity. Surely, all my actions must have put pressure on him. After that, our marital life ceased, and my husband began to sleep with his back to me. It was my fault. I had angered my husband. Though it's too late to regret, our relationship remained unrepaired, and half a year passed. Hey, our first wedding anniversary is coming up, isn't it? How about we have dinner again? Remember, on that cruise ship. It's a weekday, so there are still seats available. We can still make a reservation for dinner now. Hoping to face each other again and enjoy a pleasant time like before. I bravely invited him, hoping it might bring his feelings back. Initially surprised and hesitant, he nodded when I said I would treat him this time. That's a good idea. It's nice to dine out occasionally. The food there was delicious, too. Seeing my husband's softened expression gave me some relief. So I immediately made a reservation and looked forward to the day. Then, the promised day arrived. I managed to finish work on time for the first time in a long while. And went home to change into a dress I usually don't wear, then headed to the meeting place. The sound of my heels bouncing made my heart flutter. My husband would surely be surprised to see me like this. I arrived at the boarding area at the harbor. There was no sign of my husband yet. I had arrived a bit early, so I decided to wait for him. Since we got married, we had stopped going on dates like this. But today was a special day. I waited excitedly for my husband to appear, feeling the same as I did back then. Passengers boarded one after another, but my husband was still not there. I checked the time. The departure time was approaching. No matter how many times I called, there was no response from my husband. And I began to feel increasingly anxious. I was approached several times by the cruise staff, but I could only wait for him. Then, the ship sailed exactly on time, and I was left alone at the harbor. Still, I waited, believing he would come. Before I knew it, 2 hours had passed without any contact from my husband. Had something happened to him? A foreboding feeling crossed my mind. Perhaps it would be easier to get in touch if I went home. With that thought, I hurried back. I prayed that my husband was safe. As I returned home praying repeatedly, I was shocked when I opened the front door. Because an unexpected sight unfolded before my eyes. Hey, I'm late. Were you waiting for me all alone at the harbor this whole time? That must have been tough. Laughing derisively as if mocking me was definitely my husband. And for some reason, he was packing his belongings into a duffel bag. Why are you at home? You remember we had plans today, right? Ignoring my concerns, my husband burst out laughing. Ah. Of course. How was it? Feeling abandoned alone at the harbor? Or did you take the cruise alone and eat a dinner for two? Clearly, this was not the gentle and calm husband I knew. What's going on? Why has he changed so drastically? I couldn't understand the situation. And what's with that dress? A 43-year-old hag trying to look appealing is just pathetic. Were you trying to lure me to bed with that? It makes me sick. I don't need you anymore. Oh, this must be a dream. This person isn't my husband. He would never say such cruel things. Despite telling myself this, my mind went blank. Why are you crying? I don't want to see an old woman's tears. I made a mistake marrying you. I should have chosen a younger, more vibrant woman. Before I knew it, tears were streaming down my cheeks. I wanted to wake up from this nightmare. My husband's taunts and harsh words grew worse. It was easy to deceive you. Just a few sweet words and you were hooked. When I first saw your house, I decided to take it over. Some plain office worker paying off a room loan, what a struggle. Thanks to that, the contract went smoothly. Stunned by my husband's unexpected words, I doubted my ears. Take over? What contract? As I trembled, my husband continued, delivering the final blow. The purpose of our marriage was to take this house. I was never interested in a plain old woman like you. But living with you was too boring. I thought I could live more elegantly, but being with a miser like you is not fun at all. Also. His yelling pierced my heart, one word at a time. He continued to raise his voice, uncaring. What about infertility treatment? It's too late for you. Be grateful that someone like you was even embraced. Actually, I have a mistress, and she's pregnant. My husband pulled out what seemed to be brand new baby clothes from his duffel bag. Youth is the key, after all. My lover is 23 years old. You understand, right? Just give up. Feeling drained, I could no longer stand and fell to my knees. Our finances were separate, our incomes and savings unknown to each other. But recently, my husband had been asking for more money for living expenses. To think it was for his mistress. Their affair started in a nightclub. He squandered my money there and succeeded in getting involved with her. The top girl at the time, and she became pregnant. She was fun to be around and good with money. So my self-indulgent husband continued to verbally abuse me, weakened as I was. I'm going to live in a different high-rise with her, so we're getting divorced. The sale of this house has already been arranged. You should get out as soon as possible. It was a terrifying scream. You can't just sell it on your own. His story was too surreal, and I raised my voice without thinking. It was quite a hassle. I had to visit the city office several times to get various documents. And the most troublesome was your certificate. Here, this. He threw my driver's license at me. It seems he took it from my wallet while I was asleep. He had also taken important documents like the house registration certificate. And my social security card. He and his mistress, who had aged her face with makeup to look like me. Went to the real estate agent with these documents. Could a real estate transaction really have been completed like that? A real estate agent's eye is not blind. My husband must be misunderstanding something. Anyway, what my husband did is a crime. If he really did it, it cannot be forgiven, so I must investigate thoroughly. My tears had stopped as if they were a lie, and I had already regained my composure. So, this house is no longer yours. I decided to take all the money after the sale. So you are no longer needed. I'll give you 3 days to pack your things and get out. My husband threw the divorce papers at me. My husband's section is already filled out. All right, I will submit the divorce papers. In return, can I have all my important documents back? Including my driver's license and social security card? If the sale is complete, you won't need them anymore. My husband smoothly accepted my request and returned everything to me before leaving through the front door. He's probably heading to the high-rise where his mistress lives. I can never forgive him. This is nothing less than marriage fraud. As anger welled up inside me, I also regretted my foolishness for believing and marrying such a man, and tears flowed again. My husband was never truly looking at me, but rather at the prospect of a luxurious and elegant life in the high-rise. He had merely used me for that purpose. Alone, I went into the bedroom and collapsed onto the bed. I curled up in the fetal position, hugged myself, and closed my eyes. After which I remembered nothing. It seems I fell into a deep sleep, exhausted and shocked. 3 days later, I received a call from my husband. On the phone, he was indeed a different person from before. His voice harsh and loud as he shouted into my ear. "Hey. You're ready, right? As promised, you're moving out today." I tried to calm my indignation at his harsh words, wondering why he would speak to me this way. Wait a minute. We were married for a year, weren't we? If we're going to part, I want to do it properly. Can I meet your mistress? I couldn't just step back meekly. I have my pride too. Surprisingly, my husband readily agreed to my request. And we arranged to meet at a cafe near the station. Hey, you poor, lonely old lady. This is my girlfriend. Unlike you, she's hundreds of times younger and cuter. As soon as my husband entered the cafe, he spotted me inside and raised his voice without caring about the other patrons sitting next to him. His mistress was enveloped in a strong perfume scent and wore a tight dress that clearly outlined her body, with bold makeup suitable for the night scene and her long golden hair swept aside. She laughed through her nose as if triumphant. You really are beautiful, quite different from me. How did you manage to impersonate me and go to the real estate agent? Flattered and pleased, the mistress began to chatter away. She had dyed her hair black just for that day and disguised herself with a hat and glasses. She added wrinkles to her face with eyeliner and, whenever spoken to by the real estate agent, she would only nod or shake her head without speaking. I just sat there. He did all the talking. This way, we'll get a lot of money, right? It's easy. Such a suspicious duo must have raised doubts among the real estate agents. Besides, selling a house isn't that easy. Impressive. There might be a call from the real estate agent to me soon. So could you tell me the name of the person in charge? The more she was flattered, the more the mistress got carried away. She was the perfect person for gathering information. One last thing, are you really prepared to stay with my husband from now on? I looked intently into the mistress's eyes. Thick false eyelashes and heavy black eyeliner. It's amazing how much makeup she had applied. Of course. He's kind and has money. I can quit my tough night job and live luxuriously in a high-rise from now on. Also, I'm pregnant with his baby. The mistress's ultimate motive was apparently money. My husband, unaware of this, was smitten with his young girlfriend. I then presented them with the papers. However, they were just blank papers. Wait, why there aren't written anything? Hurry up and give us the proper ones. Otherwise, we can't get married. The mistress panicked more than expected. Was she that eager for my husband's wealth? Right. Since you have a child, I'll concede. A child should not be blamed for this. We'll submit this ourselves. As soon as I passed the divorce papers, the mistress hastily grabbed them, carelessly folded them, and stuffed them into her bag, sighing with relief. My husband sat proudly, as if victorious. I took one last look at their unsightly demeanor and stood up. Thank you. I wish you happiness. Also, wait a week before moving out. There are many arrangements to be made for water, gas, and other utilities. And it's simply impossible in 3 days. Reluctantly, my husband agreed. I left them in the cafe and walked away briskly. The place I hurried to next was a familiar real estate office. In fact, 3 nights before my husband declared divorce and changed completely, I received a call from an acquaintance who worked at that real estate office. The office my husband visited with his disguised mistress to sell the house was, ironically, one with which I had a long-standing relationship, and the person in charge was my acquaintance. The person in charge, who knew me well, was dumbfounded to see the disguised mistress. However, due to their position, they could not ask too detailed questions about non-business matters. And for fear of a complaint, they responded dispassionately at the moment. Hesitant to finalize a sales contract with such suspicious individuals under my name, the person in charge instead urged the mistress to sign a mediation contract, not a sales contract. The ignorant duo, thinking it was a sales contract, mistakenly believed they had finalized a sale, and left the real estate office in high spirits after the mistress signed. There's a reason I have a familiar relationship with the real estate office. In fact, I am the owner of this high-rise and own several other properties. My total assets amount to $130 million. Therefore, my relationship with the real estate office is deep. Everyone might wonder how such a plain office worker could own so much real estate. It is the result of inheriting my parents' wealth and my earnings from stocks and investments. Spending money isn't just about splurging in nightclubs. Even if it starts small, saving diligently can eventually lead to a significant amount. Even after getting married, I always had a reservation in my heart about trusting my husband completely. Revealing my true identity might cause a good marital relationship to fail. Knowing about the money might change his personality. Fearing the worst, I kept important matters secret and only told my husband where the documents were, in case something happened. I never thought he would misuse it. It seems that my husband found the deed to the house in the drawer containing the documents, and came up with this wicked idea. I am also to blame for not realizing what kind of man he was before we married. However, what my husband did was a crime. I confirmed this with the real estate agent. His actions should not be forgiven. Afterwards, I distributed his photo to several real estate agents I am familiar with. Information spread rapidly, and he was blacklisted as a fraud suspect by all real estate businesses in this area. Sure enough, my husband was arrogantly visiting real estate agents, thinking he would soon make a fortune from selling the house. He is oblivious to what is actually happening behind the scenes. Then the promised week passed. My ex-husband came to my home with his mistress, believing that the divorce papers were processed, and they were finally going to take possession of the house. Full of joy and expectation, he opened the front door as if he owned the place. However, a harsh reality far beyond his imagination awaited him. Hey. What's going on? What happened to moving out? I told you to leave within this week. Only my ex-husband's belongings were left at the entrance. I had not prepared to move at all. The two of them became furious and started shouting. This is my house. You are the ones who should leave. Look, I've packed your things, so take them and leave quickly. No matter how much they raged and hurled insults, I kept my cool. Reminding myself to stay calm, I took a deep breath. Don't talk nonsense, you crazy old woman. I told you. I've already sold this house. I handled all the procedures. I can even show you the proof. With his face turning red and looking like he might leap at me any moment. My ex-husband had eyes filled with more fury than a drunk I once encountered. But I faced him without flinching. What's with that attitude? If you can't listen to what I'm saying, maybe I should shut you up for good. You crazy old woman. My ex-husband charged at me from the entrance. At that moment, the real estate agent appeared from the living room. Please wait a moment. You are misunderstanding something. The house has not been sold yet. The procedures are still ongoing. The agent stepped between my ex-husband and me, stopping his advance. Thinking of the worst-case scenario, I had asked him to be present. What now? I definitely signed the contract that time. Or are you saying you tricked us? Are you a con artist? I'll sue you. My ex-husband grabbed the agent by the shirt. The agent tried to calm him down, but my ex-husband's anger only grew. This gentleman is a real estate agent I always rely on. He hasn't committed any crime, he's just doing his job properly. My words seemed to enrage my ex-husband even further, and he continued to rant. I didn't tell you, but I own this apartment building. There's no one in the local real estate market who doesn't know me. It was foolish of you to try to sell the house in such a ridiculous disguise, without any knowledge. At that moment, my ex-husband's complexion changed, and he fell silent. What you've done is a crime. If anyone is to be sued, it's you. I've already filed a report with the police. Your arrest is only a matter of time. In fact, at the cafe, I was recording everything with a voice recorder. The mistress spoke freely in response to my questions. And combined with documents from the real estate agency and security camera footage, I had all the evidence needed. This is a clear case of fraud. Sweat poured from his forehead, and his face, red as a volcano ready to erupt, showed he was about to lash out at me like a ferocious beast. The agent struggled to hold back my ex-husband. Changing his target of rage, my ex-husband attempted to hit the agent. At that moment, with a dull thud, my ex-husband's body flew through the air and fell to the floor. Ouch. What are you doing? Unbeknownst to him, the agent is a skilled judo player. To prevent further harm and to calm my ex-husband down, a light shoulder throw was executed. It was in self-defense. For safety, we have cameras installed in this room. And this will serve as solid evidence. My ex-husband found himself cornered. Then, as if all strength had left his body, he collapsed on the floor, sprawling out and looking up at the ceiling. Wait, what's going on? What is this all about? I participated in that charade, wearing a disguise because you said we were going to get a fortune. And now you're telling me I won't get a penny? On top of that, am I a criminal now? I was just deceived by this old man. I haven't done anything wrong. From her previously triumphant demeanor, the mistress now looked panicked, her eyes darting around. I was foolish to trust someone like you. You penniless old man. You were just after the money all along, weren't you? The pregnancy was a lie. If we had gotten married and secured the fortune, you would have claimed a miscarriage and left me. I'm not interested in an old man like you." Everyone was shocked by the mistress's words. Who would have thought that the mistress was also a marriage fraudster? "You're so creepy, drooling over a young woman. You perverted old man. I'll gather your belongings and leave them outside the entrance. So take them and get out of my house." After screaming at the top of her lungs, the mistress stormed out the door. The sound of her heels echoed down the hallway. Eventually, it faded away, and silence returned. "I apologize. This is how things stand. I will never appear before you again. I will leave this town. So, could you please not press criminal charges?" My exhausted husband made a last desperate plea, rubbing his forehead on the floor. But no matter how much he apologized, it was too late. I rejected his request to forgive him, insisting that he must pay for his crimes. Thus, our conflict came to an end. Later, I heard that my ex-husband and his mistress were arrested. They resisted until the end, denying the allegations. But the numerous pieces of evidence led to their arrest. Months later, spring returned again. I was single once more, continuing my routine of commuting between home and work. One day, I received a call from the real estate agent. He wanted to talk to me. So, we agreed to meet at a nearby park. On a calm afternoon during the weekend, we sat next to each other under a cherry tree. I sensed something different about him. He seemed nervous. I wondered what was on his mind. Suddenly, he stood up. "I've been in love with you for a long time. But because of my position, I couldn't express my feelings. However, I won't hide them anymore. I've decided to let you know. So no terrible man can take you away again." His cheeks were flushed, and he looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. Almost like a young boy. It seemed he had cared about me for quite some time. Actually, he was the second son of a well-known major real estate company president. Thinking it was inappropriate to fall in love with an important client, he had suppressed his feelings for me. His family was wealthy, and the company would be inherited by his older brother. Now that he was set to start his own business, he saw it as an opportunity to express his feelings. "You should be yourself more. Do things you enjoy, wear clothes you like, and enjoy both your work and private life." In reality, my plain appearance was just a facade. Following my parents' teaching to not flaunt wealth, I had hidden my true self. "I know your true beauty. I saw you at a real estate party once, dressed very elegantly. And you were the center of attention among the men. To me, you have always been someone out of my reach. Now that I am starting my own business, I intend to become a man worthy of you." To think that someone who truly saw me was so close. Looking directly at me, I nodded with a smile. The falling petal seemed to be celebrating with us.